The shove came sudden, sharp, and humiliating. The clerk's hand struck the old man's shoulder, forcing him back a step. "Get out of here, Grandpa. We don't sell to relics." His words were loud, venomous, designed to sting, and they did. Heads turned in the gun shop, customers shifting uncomfortably as the insult hung in the air. Behind the counter, the young man smirked, reveling in the attention his cruelty drew. The veteran steadied himself, hand gripping the counter. His cap sun-faded, sweat-stained, red Vietnam veteran. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from decades of battles fought, from scars invisible to strangers. He looked at the boy who had shoved him, eyes weary but unbroken. "Son," he said, voice steady though low with age, "I only came to buy some rounds, nothing more." But the clerk sneered, leaning forward as if the sight of this old soldier offended him. "Rounds? What for? You can barely stand straight. Guys like you shouldn't own a firearm. You're a danger to yourself and everyone else." The air thickened with tension. The store, moments earlier filled with idle chatter and the metallic click of rifles being handled, fell into silence. Customers peeked from the corners of their eyes, unwilling to intervene yet ashamed of their inaction. The veteran's chest rose and fell slowly, dignity his only shield. He reached into his wallet, fingers stiff, and laid down his veteran ID. "I served this country," he said quietly, sliding it across the counter. "I earned the right." The young man didn't even glance at the card. His lip curled. "Don't care what you earned 50 years ago. Times have changed. You're useless now. Take your dusty medals and get out." The words were sharper than bullets. A few gasps rippled through the shop, but no one spoke. The veteran's lips quivered, but he didn't argue. He gathered his belongings with trembling hands, nodded to no one, and turned toward the door. The bell above it chimed softly as he stepped outside, whispering to himself, "I buried brothers so men like this could live free." Outside, the afternoon sun cast long shadows on the cracked pavement. The old soldier's shoulders sagged beneath the invisible weight of humiliation. Each step felt heavier than the last. He adjusted his cap, whispering the names of brothers long gone, men who would never know that their sacrifices had paved the way for a world where their memory could be so easily discarded. Inside, the clerk laughed, shaking his head. "Good riddance, old man." He leaned on the counter, scrolling casually on his phone, smugness curling his lips. To him, the moment was nothing more than a personal victory, a way to flex superiority over someone too old to fight back. But the clerk's arrogance blinded him, for he had mocked not just a man, but a legacy. He didn't know that the veteran's story had not ended at that door. 7 minutes later, the first low growl of engines echoed down the street, a sound that made windows tremble. Black SUVs rolled in like shadows, tires screeching against asphalt, doors flung open in perfect rhythm. Boots struck pavement with unison so sharp it felt like thunder. Out stepped men in combat gear, their movements precise, faces set in steel, Navy SEALs. Their presence swallowed the street, a wall of discipline and silent authority. Neighbors peeked through blinds, startled by the sudden show of force. And at the front, walking with slow certainty, was the veteran. No longer alone, no longer bowed. He stood flanked by warriors half his age, yet carrying the same bloodline of courage. Inside, the clerk still lounged at the counter, thumbing through his phone. When the bell above the door chimed again, he looked up lazily, expecting another customer, but his smirk froze. The old man had returned. Behind him, the SEAL team fanned out across the aisles, rifles strapped to their chests, tactical gear gleaming under fluorescent lights. Customers gasped, backing away instinctively as the air shifted. It was no longer just a shop, it had become a battlefield of respect. The SEAL commander stepped forward, calm but commanding, his voice carrying authority forged from fire. "Is there a problem here?" The clerk's bravado melted. His throat bobbed nervously as he stuttered, No, sir, everything's fine." But the commander's eyes narrowed, shifting from the trembling clerk to the quiet veteran who stood beside him, then back again. His words were sharp, not shouted but heavy enough to crush. "This man you threw out, he's not just any veteran. He's the reason soldiers like us even exist. He fought before we were born. He carried this flag through fire and blood, and you dared to disrespect him." The clerk's hands trembled, his smirk replaced with pale regret. I didn't mean," he stammered. But before he could finish, the veteran raised a hand, silencing the SEAL commander. His voice, though frail with age, cut through the room like steel. "No need to scare the boy," he said softly. "He doesn't understand what it costs to carry freedom on your back." Commander shook his head jaw tight. "Sir, with respect, some lessons must be taught." With a snap of his fingers, the SEAL straightened instantly. Boots slammed into the floor with a sound like rolling thunder, echoing through the narrow aisles. Customers jumped at the sudden noise, their hearts thudding as discipline manifested itself in human form. Rifles crossed their chests, eyes fixed forward. Then in one fluid motion, every SEAL turned toward the veteran. The store froze, the world froze, and then it happened. 20 hands rose in unison. A salute, sharp and flawless, directed not at a general, not at a commander, but at the old man who stood with tears brimming in his tired eyes. His breath caught trembling. Slowly, reverently, he removed his cap and pressed it over his heart. For the first time in decades, the weight of his service wasn't mocked, it was honored. The silence was electric, broken only by the ragged inhale of a soldier rediscovering pride. The veteran's lips quivered, eyes clouded but burning with gratitude. He hadn't expected this. For years, he had walked unnoticed, just another old man fading into the background. But here now in this simple shop, warriors saluted him as if time itself had turned back. His knees weakened, not from frailty, but from the overwhelming surge of memory. The jungles of Vietnam, the echo of gunfire, the weight of fallen brothers across his shoulders. The commander's voice rang steady, reverent. "Sir, you are not forgotten, not by us, not ever." The old man straightened, his spine finding strength it hadn't known in decades. His chest swelled, his hands steady on his cap. For the first time in years, he felt tall again. Not old, not broken, but the 19-year-old soldier who had once walked into fire and never flinched. The clerk's face burned crimson. His arrogance shattered into dust. Shame sank deep, twisting his stomach as he realized the magnitude of his disrespect. Unable to look anyone in the eye, the clerk lowered his head. The veteran, however, did not gloat. His voice was calm, steady, like a teacher delivering a lesson the young could not yet comprehend. "Young man," he said, "one day you'll learn respect. Not because someone forces you, but because you'll realize you've been walking free on the sacrifice of men you'll never meet." The words fell heavy like stones in water. No one moved. Customers felt their throats tighten, some wiping away tears they hadn't noticed forming. The SEALs held their salute until the old man gave a single nod. Then, in perfect unison, they lowered their hands. The sound of boots snapping back into stance echoed, commanding silence. It wasn't just military discipline, it was thunderous respect. And for the first time, the clerk understood he had mocked something greater than himself, greater than this shop, greater even than his small sense of power. The room shifted. Customers who had stayed silent before now erupted into applause. Some stood taller, as if touched by the dignity they had just witnessed. Others wiped tears openly, no longer hiding emotion. The gun shop, moments ago poisoned by disrespect, now rang with the sound of honor reclaimed. The clerk remained frozen, his arrogance drained, his pride reduced to rubble. His ears burned as every clap, every tear, reminded him of the weight of his mistake. The veteran turned slowly toward the commander. "Thank you, boys," he said softly. "You didn't have to come." The commander's lips lifted in the faintest smile. "We did, sir, because we don't leave a brother standing alone." The words struck deeper than any salute. Brotherhood was not about age. It was not about rank. It was about never leaving one behind, whether in jungles or gun shops, whether in war or peace. The veteran adjusted his cap, his eyes gleaming with pride instead of shame. The humiliation that had weighed him down moments earlier now melted away. What replaced it was truth, unshakably undeniable. He was still a soldier, still a brother, still honored. The SEALs surrounded him as he walked toward the door. Their boots echoed like a drumbeat of respect, carrying him out with the dignity he had earned long ago. Customers remained silent, heads bowed, the lesson carved deep into their hearts. As the door swung shut, the store stayed hushed, the echo of respect louder than any insult. Never underestimate the weight of a uniform, or the man who once wore it. Never forget that freedom rests on the shoulders of those willing to bleed for it. The veteran's whisper lingered in the air. "I buried brothers so men like this could live free." And now, at last, the world had listened.